We want to dedicate this talk to Padre Marcelo, who gave his life for indigenous people in Chiapas. As Acción Palestina Chiapas, we want to thank him for his kindness and solidarity to the Palestinian cause. Padre Marcelo vive. Justicia para el Padre Marcelo.
Hola and bienvenidos a CounterPunch Radio. Welcome to CounterPunch Radio, everybody. My name is Maria Goldschmidt. I am here in Hiroshima in Japan, and today we have a special episode with folks out in Chiapas in Mexico. So thanks to the wonders of technology, we're able to connect together to talk a little bit more about the history of Chiapas and the connections to Palestine and what Acción Chiapas is working on over in the state of Chiapas in Mexico. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on CounterPunch Radio. And maybe we can just do some brief introductions if y'all want to introduce yourselves. Bienvenidos.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Hi, I'm Kui. I live here in Chiapas. I lived here for about 28 years and work with different groups in organizations that work with the communities.
Hi, I'm Chabela. I live here in San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas too, and I have been living here around 14 years ago, also working with some organizations and communities.
Gracias. Thanks so much for joining us. And special shout out to Crisia, who set up our audio and video for today and is doing the editing for this episode.
Sí, gracias.
So, we have a lot of groups all around the world right now. The solidarity movement for Palestine has been growing immensely. And I just wanted to know a little bit more, if you could tell us a little bit more about what you all have been up to, who you are, and why you've been doing what you're doing in solidarity with Palestine.
Well, we're a group of diverse people that live here in San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas. We're people from all around the world. And we meet after October 7 to raise our voices against the massacre of the Palestinian people. One thing we have all in common in the group is that we were very frustrated at seeing that the local political organization were not talking about the genocide. So we decided to get together and to speak up and make noise and draw people attention to what was going on in Palestine. We wanted to, because we are people that have the technology to know what's going on, we wanted to take the information to look at people that don't have the technology or the medios to get informed. So we wanted to spread the world here in Chiapas what was going on with the Palestinian people.
Gracias. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what are some of the actions that you've been doing, how you've been organizing, and just how maybe the community has been reacting to some of the work that you guys have been doing. Because I know you've been really active and really consistent with your actions since last year.
Okay, so we've done primarily 3 different kinds of actions, like informative talks, performative activities, to raise people's awareness, and for fundraising actions. We try to get information to the people and at the same time educate ourselves, looking for people that know more than us. For instance, one of the actions we did, the talks, was with a doctor, a Mexican doctor that was in Gaza, right after the beginning of the war, and he was operating there for about 6 weeks, and we had the luck to meet him during one of the actions, and he offered himself to talk about his experience. That's Dr. Aldo Rodriguez. And he was very good explaining us what the situation in the hospitals is or was like a year ago, and that was one of the talks we had. Another one is this historian and practicing Jew, Ana Vasquez Carpizo. She lives here in the city. She explained us a lot of the historical background of the difference between Judaism, Hebrew, Jewish, and explaining anti-Semitism, Zionism, and to understand what is and the history of the foundation of the Israeli state and the conflict between Palestine and Israel. So that was very, very good for us to understand better the conflict and to share it with people.
And I think it's important that we share it in our own, language. It's not a very difficult language. We want to get the information just like as the people talk, like to be closed and easy information, so people can be informed of what is going on, and it's easy to understand for them.
Another talk we had is with another comrade from the collective, Lim. He talked about the similitudes between the British colonialism in Ireland and the British colonialism in Palestine, and many of these the strategies that were used in Ireland that were used in Palestine too.
So you guys have been doing a lot of educational awareness. I'm wondering, if, just from your personal perspectives or your own background, how familiar were you already with the issue of Palestine? Or when you guys all came together as a group, had people already been working on Palestine as an issue from Chiapas? Or was it like kind of more like, okay, you saw what was happening, you were like, this is really messed up. We are seeing the images of the genocide. We're seeing and hearing the reports from Gaza, and you kind of came together because of October 7th and the sequential events that came after that. But I'm wondering, did you already have from Chiapas? Was there already kind of relation with Palestine, or wondering about the history there?
I think we had a relationship. Like, I remember many years ago, we did some specific actions for Palestinian, but it was just like one moment. We didn't get through the line and just became a group, an active group that see us weekly. So I feel that this time we're just getting to know more. And because we're a very diverse group, I think that we have very people that knows lots. So I think we all are learning more about the Palestinian history and everything. I think it has been a year, so we have been knowing much more. But I think for many years before, there's a relationship, and I remember some actions, specific actions we did many years ago for Palestinian people.
Yeah, and Palestine has always been some very important and historical example of resistance, and as an indigenous people. At the beginning of the war, we got together as a group, and we realized that we needed to study about especially history, specifically to have to be able to have ways of explaining people what's going on. First, we had to understand much more of the history to be able to talk to people, and at the same time, if there was some argument, so we could be informed and talk about it.
Gracias. When I lived in Tijuana, it was kind of one of the times of my life where I became more aware of the Israeli state apparatus and how, the relations between the border of Mexico, United States, and Israel and Palestine, and how the border infrastructure was also being utilized in the same place, same kind of technology. So I wonder, in Chiapas, which is not on the, it's otra frontera, like different border zone. But I always kind of wondered, because I've never been to Chiapas, I've never been to San Cristobal, how the people really understand what's happening in Palestine. And so it seems like maybe there are some historical relations, and people know about Palestine, I'm sure. Obviously, the Zapatista movement also has spoken out openly about Palestine. But I was wondering, just like regular everyday folks, how people have been reacting. So I wonder, maybe you could talk a little bit about the different actions you've done. You've done more educational activities, but you've also done a lot of kind of street actions and a lot of I don't want to say theatrical, but yeah, more performative actions. And maybe you could talk a little bit about those, what you've been doing, and how people have reacted to that in the pueblo, like in the city.
We have been doing, we did the day in the main street to denounce the criminal bombing. We did it in front of a building, a historical building where the Zapatistas took in 94. It was, for me, it was the most powerful thing we did. We stayed in the floor for 7 minutes, I think. And people were like, what's going on? We did the Altar de Muertos, that it's very Mexican, and I think that's a Palestinian Altar de Muertos, and I think that people got to know what was going on there. Many people just got to the altar and asked what was going on. We did the red line to denounce all the bombing, the red lines that Israel has been passing. I don't know. Se ha pasado de lanza y ha bombardeado. Sorry. We did a line close with the names of people that had been murdered by the Israel military.
The children.
And the children.
Specifically, that line was
for the children's
we
names.
collected
it was really hard.
Kids' clothes for a month, and we asked people to put them on the line, like hang them in the line, so that people would realize that it's like all these kids have been murdered, and to denounce specifically that.
And that close, after the action, we took them to other kids that were displacement for the violence here. So we just, como que we tejimos between this, no? We try to keep Palestina.
Yeah, to weave.
To weave the struggles, because they're people under pueblos originarios. They're indigenous people that are being... And
at that very moment, there were 300,000 displaced people
for the violence here in Chiapas.
Because of the narco and a lot.
In Chiapas?
Yes. Sí.
300,000 displaced people. Okay. So you're kind of trying to, through that particular action of the children's clothing, so you collected children's clothes from the community, hung them in a display to show people like the reality of the children of Gaza, and then you donated the clothes to the displaced people of Chiapas who have been displaced because of the narco-violence.
Yeah.
And I understand, that's right, yeah.
Yes.
That's correct.
Wow, so that really is a really important weaving or kind of joining of the two issues that are, we have almost 2 million Palestinians who are displaced, but 300,000 is a lot of people for a place like Chiapas that is not so huge, so that is really important for people, I think, to understand too, is like the issues are deeply interconnected, even though they're in different places. So even the person who's in your collective, who spoke about Ireland and the historical occupation of Ireland and the British colonialism there, seems like you guys are really kind of connecting a lot of the dots between how these kind of bigger issues, bigger powers are affecting all of the communities that you're all related to. So
Sorry, I think it's 30,000, not 300,000. Sounds like
30,000.
Okay, sorry,
Yes.
30,000.
Sorry, 30,000.
30,000.
30,000.
I was like, that's so many people. I mean,
Yes.
30,000 is
At-
still a lot of
at
people
that
too, but
moment,
still, even
yes.
if it's
I think
300
it's
people,
more.
it's still
Yes.
too many, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is too many.
Yes, and that's interestingly, like people would ask us in the street, okay, you're doing this for Palestine, but what are you doing for the local people that are being displaced and murdered and all the violence locally? And we said we're doing that too. I mean, we're trying to, because it's very similar in this sense. Chiapas has the border worldwide, with more people crossing it, and it's massive. It's massive. The people that need to cross from the south, and they just walk with their kids towards the north, and they need to deal with all the mafias and the narcos, and so it's something very present.
Like, I think we're trying to get to different publics. Like, we're trying to do things that can raise awareness in different circles. Because if we keep speaking to ourselves, we're not gonna get long. And I think we can see after a year that this group has been doing actions, we can see the difference, no? At the first one, we were mostly us, but then people is getting to get interest and coming more to the action and asking most and involved to get involucrarse to the actions.
Yeah, to get involved.
So I think it's been a good thing, I can say.
Yeah. Like first, it was pretty much just the people that are politicized and the people that are already organized. But being out there at the plaza and trying to put this the Palestinian topic in the daily life of people to get some attention, it was some sort of strange because people are already desensibilized because of violence.
Here.
There's too much violence here, and people kind of just turn their eyes to away, and they have a lot of doubts about the if what are we doing, because the mass media portrays the Palestinians as terrorists, and so people have doubts about it. So we try with the actions to show
The human life.
like just people pretty much like us, or like any people in the third world that have been colonized and that live racism, classism. There are so many similarities. The lack of resources, the lack of hope, sometimes the lack of opportunities, and the normalization of violence. So,
And the price of the land where they live. That's
how there's all these the projects, maybe the interests of like big companies that are willing to do mining or
megaproyectos, we call it here, or proyectos de muerte, dead projects. But they're gonna take over the land. They wanna take over the land, and for taking over the land, they need to move the people, the pueblos originarios, the indigenous people, away from there. So it's pretty much the same in different parts of the world.
So you are drawing a very direct connection between the narco-violence, which is really supporting these kind of larger land projects. I'm not sure of the whole situation, and so we don't have to go into all of the details. I know it's a complicated, there's just a lot of historical reasoning for why displacement happens. Yeah. But I think mainly we could say that you're making connections between some of the larger land projects that are happening and why people are needing to be in the context of, displacement, why and how people are being pushed off of their native land in order for larger projects of mining or other kinds of extraction projects to happen. So you're seeing that is clearly happening in Chiapas to the communities that's happening with you guys. And then you're seeing how that relates to what's happening to the people of Palestine and maybe the overt violence that it takes to have to displace people is something that you're just kind of making the connections between.
Yeah, and just plain poorness. That people are forced to migrate because the youngsters don't have any access to land. They need
infrastructure to live.
Yeah, there's no opportunity, so they're forced to leave the state and go north
to survive.
Yeah, and like right now, for instance, any youngster that wants to leave, they can't even migrate freely. They need to pay about maybe $10,000 just to be able to migrate safely.
To try to get there, but it's not sure.
It's not clear that they're gonna make it. So, and that still people facing that situation, they still decide that it's their only option because locally there's no options, especially for indigenous poor people that have almost no education, they have problems speaking Spanish, and they suffer all this racism from the Mexican society. I think we see this situation with the Palestinians that are being just being massacred, and their struggle. Some leave, but a lot decide to stay and fight for the land, despite that all the bombings and all the massacre that has been happening, and they show their that generation after generation they continue struggling, and that what they do now is for the future generations. They fight for the future, and knowing that they may not see it in their life, but the grandparents fought and as for their lives, and then pass the struggle to them, and they will pass it to their grandchildren. So that's very inspiring, and something that many indigenous people can, or not only indigenous, but any people from this example of resistance from people from any colonized or impoverished group can learn from.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Oh, go ahead.
No, you keep going. I think learn and just to give, como se dice, power to keep going. I think we are here because we can see the Palestinian people resistance, and we need, like, it makes you keep going. Like, they pass you la digna lucha, no, una resistencia digna that gives you the motor to keep going.
Yeah. That show of dignity, and the way they even when they've been killed for so many years, so like the displaced and again and again, and despite there's been so many killings, and they have no water, they have no food, they have no schools, and still they think about a future that it's possible, and their struggle, it's so important that we could think about it as some sort of an experiment from the powerful, the colonialist powers that want to test how far can they go in order to exterminate and people and take over their land, take over their resources. As they son-in-law of the current U.S. president, has said that they see a lot of
opportunity to make land in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, like to make money of it, or some European powers, like they want to do gas business. They don't care. And so it's again and again this colonialism in which they can exterminate the people and just get rid of them and go over any institutions like UN or whatever. They no respect for anything, any red lines, like no bombing hospitals, schools, Red Cross, journalists. It doesn't matter. They're testing how far can they go, and if we just stand and look, we're being part of it, and that will come back to us.
That's the thing. We are all part of it, so we all need to struggle.
If that saying, they came for the Palestinians, and since we were not Palestinians, we didn't do anything. So they'll go for some other people later.
And they're coming here too for the original people in Mexico, so it's the same. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the same. And I think that is part of why the work you all are doing is so important, is to just raise awareness that it is the same system, it is the same companies, it is the same, ideologies of white supremacy, of racism, that continues to oppress, after so many generations. And I really like what you said, Kui, about the intergenerational inheritance of the struggle, of how the Palestinian people continue to fight and refuse to leave because their grandparents also were either displaced during the Nakba or, were not, and they're still in 48, or whatever people's situation is. People do know that their grandparents refused and were also struggling to stay. And so even though, like you were mentioning earlier, for young people in Chiapas, maybe there's kind of this option of migration. Do I leave as a young person? Do I want to go to Estados Unidos? Do I want to go to wherever, Europe or something else? Should I leave if you're coming from an indigenous pueblo originario? How much can you afford to pay? Can you even make that transition? We've been seeing a lot of people raising money for GoFundMes for people when Rafa was still open, when people were still evacuating. We had a lot of people raising money for funds to get people out, because people were like, I just want to get the hell out of here because I can't survive under these circumstances. So you do see there is a parallel there too between Chiapas or other pueblos in Mexico, where people just simply don't have economic or educational or any other kind of opportunity. And then there's immense violence just in the communities in general because of the exploitation and the land theft. So to me, what you guys have been talking about really makes it clear the parallels between what people are experiencing and that also really heartbreaking choice of whether or not you want to leave, or and do you even have the means to make that happen? Like you're saying, even with the migration, the exploitation of people who are migrating, como que you have to pay $10,000 to even leave now because the road itself is so unsafe. You're basically just paying for your safety along the way. And that's, it was costing about $5,000 to get out of Gaza at a certain point too, to cross to Egypt, to then also be living in another place. So I'm just trying to kind of like tie together some of the things that you've been sharing, but I think it's important, for folks to understand that the resistance to all of those forces that are really just about taking the land from people. It's not an easy struggle or choice for people to make. So just, trying to lay some of that out. It's just how you guys just shared it with us. I'm wondering, because maybe we could talk a little bit about Padre Marcelo and what's been recently happening in El Pueblo, in San Cristobal, because despite all of those forces, and this is also the perfect parallel to Palestinian resistance and refusal to, submit to all of these forces. I think El Padre was a person in the community who did a lot of community work, a lot of social justice work, was very committed to the people, and was also very much in favor and in solidarity with Palestinian resistance. So maybe you could talk about him, what's going on with the recent assassination of him, and tell us a little bit more about him as a person and his contributions to Palestine.
Well, just looking for other places to put Palestinian struggle, we asked Padre Marcelo to give us a space in his church. And he did. He opened the door for us and he put a flag on the church and talking his... it was Sunday, Misa?
Yeah, no, December 12th,
the Guadalupe Day, a very important day.
Busiest mass in town in the year, the most important.
So he was very open and give us the space we asked for, and he made Palestinian his struggle too. Marcelo was, they call him a padre del pueblo creyente, from the believer pueblo, that is indigenous people all around the state. So he, for many years ago, he was denouncing what was going on, the violence going up, the narco, los megaproyectos, el alcoholismo en las comunidades. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking in Spanish.
Alcoholism in the community, the mega projects.
Yeah, all of that. And for many years ago, Padre Marcelo
has been threatened
to death many years ago, and the government never say anything or did anything. He was in a community where violence got very bad, and in Panteló, and he decided to stay there and denounce what's going on with the criminal groups of the area. So that was when they moved here in San Cristobal.
4 times we asked him for solidarity or space, and he was very, very kind. And he said it's very important that we talk to the people in the church, just like the normal people from San Cristobal, and do this link between the poor people and the people in Palestine. And he talked about it in the mass, and he said he mentioned these similarities of violence. We need to stop violence because it's a monster that will just destroy us all. There was fasting, and he offered us a space, and he went out with all his people to pray with in this action. And
Just two weeks before he was murdered, because of it was the 7th of October on the on the masses on Saturday and Sunday, he just spoke about the Palestinian struggle and people and asked for peace. And then what happened? They murdered him on the 20th after he did a mass in a barrio here. Two guys got and shoot him.
Yeah, that's why specifically symbolic that, like Arnulfo Romero, the power,
voice of the people.
Yeah, the gunners can just kill someone at midday after the mass. Just it's not out there in the shades and in the night. They feel confident. They know that it's a message to not only to anyone that dares to speak out. They feel powerful, and in this, like last week, there was this report that in the last 6 years, the government in this administration, there were 250 something people, human rights defenders were killed. Most of them in the first state is Oaxaca, then Guerrero, and Chiapas is the third one. Shows how the human rights or ecological people that fight for environment or any other, like people are activists or defenders, are just being killed very easily. And Padre Marcelo was a very good example of this, that it's so easy to kill someone, and probably nothing will happen.
Nothing happened.
No, I mean, it's just another one in the list.
I heard the news about that too. Actually read about it. Crisia told me, but I also read about it on Democracy Now! I mean, Padre Marcelo was one of these figures, church figures, who really fought for justice and dignity for the people of Mexico, the people of Chiapas, and especially indigenous people. So it is really disturbing. It's like not surprising, unfortunately, like in the context of a lot of what we're seeing. And I think, Israel and the actions that it has taken, like we were saying, what are the red lines here? Are we going to allow people who defend human rights to continue to speak their word, who's also, a man of God, for lack of a better description of who he is? He's a church leader. And we know how powerful the leadership of the churches can be. And then also someone who's specifically a church leader for human rights. They have a very particular position in the community and have done so much work for the community that to basically just kill him in front of a church, in broad daylight, like you're saying, it's very scary. And the way that Israel is conducting itself as well, bombing the hospitals, bombing the significant churches of Christian history in Palestine. I don't know if you even got to that point in the discussion with him. I'm sure he's very aware of the history of Christianity in Palestine, being, Jesus was Palestinian. So it's really important to know that he used that day, El Día de la Virgen, to preach the word of the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian struggle. I think that is an important message for everyone. And we know that, of course, there are a lot of Palestinian activists who are related to the church. There are a lot of, I'm Filipino, there's a lot of Filipino church activists as well that were also, whose lives are also consistently threatened because they speak up for people and the dignity of people. So yeah, I'm sorry, really sorry to hear that. And I'm sending I don't know, in English we say we send our condolences. Like I felt that that assassination from here in Japan. So I'm sending my thoughts to your guys' community, and that just the fact that he was open to the flag on in the church, you know, to receiving your request. And I think that's also another, you know, something that sometimes leftist communities don't want to get involved with religious communities. You know, there's like that tension there sometimes because of the history of the church and a lot of different things with religious issues. But it's also kind of important for us as activists to reach out, to make those connections, and to ask, just to ask, is it possible for us to speak to your community? Is it possible to share some of what's happening in Palestine with your community? And he was open to that. And I think that's an important learning from how you guys did that. Like, you asked 4 times, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And he said yes every time. And so it's just shows the power of that kind of relationship and how much of a threat that really is to, you know, the bigger systems that want to silence that kind of messaging.
In this sense, we can see how like the powerful will just cross any red lines they have to cross to get whatever they need, and we can expect that they won't stop. And in the other hand, we need to look for union in this sense, like leave some differences behind and aside and try to look for what's important in what do we share in the struggle, in the quest for a better world. And that's the most important thing, and we should leave aside those differences that are many times very based on just preconceptions, or we need to realize the world right now. It's very, very hard, very complicated, and we need to work for union, to work together, and to give each other some space and some rest, and to accept each other and work together instead of like dividing, and many legal struggles that are useful for the powerful. If they confront each other, all of us separated, they will defeat us, and we can maybe learn from what's happening now. We need to get together.
We're in the same trip. Okay. And I think this group is that. We are many people, different people with different positions, but we're all together here. So I think this is the reflection of this. And looking to Marcelo to go to speak to other people was trying to be more and more and more people. To break the cerco mediático, the media fence. We need to break that and give the information to the people, because mass media is not going to give it to them.
Yeah, some of the actions have been, we try to have the wide spectrum of actions, like for instance, show movies downtown for a wide audience, do things with youngsters, like hip hop. We showed this movie, this flick, Slingshot hip hop, and the kids really loved it. They felt close to some other kids in Palestine. They saw themselves how they're so similar. Offer the young people, the youngsters, some way of expressing themselves, of something that is not all these stereotypical images of powerful, rich, white, handsome, this and that future, which is impossible, and they can't force themselves a future in the communities and through their local experiences and from what they are from the hood, from like for instance they sing in tzotzil, and they can say, we can talk about like our problematic here, and they could see the Palestinian hip hop groups learning from the some Black Panthers from the groups in the US, and passing this possibility of reinventing their tools and their ways of fight.
Let's keep embroidering, tejiendo, like no, hip hop from Palestina, hip hop here from local young people in Chiapas, and they just give them a strength, no, to see the other guys over there here. We work with they call it Patrulla Roja, and they're doing some, no, they're making spaces for young people to do other things and to get to know them and start organize themselves in their own way and through the hip hop.
Yeah, music really. We watched Slingshot Hip Hop here in Japan. It's one of the few films that's Palestinian films that has Japanese subtitles. So I know you guys have been showing a lot of films in public. I think that's one of the most essential things we can be doing too, is just, you know, the images, the alternative media, you know, just getting people more familiar with the voices of Palestinian people or just Palestinian culture in general, and how that relates, deeply to other struggles, the Black struggle, the liberation struggle in other communities. I think hip hop and music culture in general is probably the most effective tool that we have to connect across borders. And even if we don't speak the same languages, you know, we can still kind of have a concept of what people are feeling just through the vibe, you know. And I know that everyone's like, yeah, music, it's the thing that unites everybody, but it really is. I mean, especially with something like hip hop culture, it's kind of impossible to ignore how potent it really is. I'm wondering too, if you guys want to talk a little bit about just in terms of connecting to other groups and other solidarity links that you have between communities. Where else have you been connecting with? And of course, this is part of, you know, we're in a global network of communities. And that's, for me, something that's been so amazing about, unfortunately, this last year of horrendous and relentless genocide. You know, all of this awful death and destruction that we've seen has allowed a whole other community of people to bloom and blossom and connect to each other and to learn more from Palestine and to be in community with Palestinian people in ways that have never happened before. So maybe you could talk a little bit about a little more about how you guys have been connecting outside of Chiapas.
Yeah, we were talking about the fasting that we did in Marcelo's church, and we did the same, like the same day, a group of Montana did the fasting too. So we connect over there during the fasting. Last Saturday, we were part of the Film Love Pal. It's a collective from Lebanon, and we passed the movie here. It was it happened in many towns all around the world, and now we're part of a Mexican network that we're trying to get some signs.
Like an initiative for signatures
to ask formally the state of Mexico to break relationships with the state of Israel. So we're working with all of other collective here in Mexico to raise those signal and be here like in the institutional way. We think it's a good to press the government to break relationships. We did the week of activities that BNS ask, and
BDS National.
And here in in San Cristobal, we're trying to get more people involved, and one of the different things we have been doing, it's like a local woman collective of independent viewers came together and make a beer that it was made from watermelon to raise funds to send. So it was really nice. Like people from all different circles are just starting to put themselves under spaces to be part of this and to make the voice stronger, to ask for Palestinian people and for Palestinian struggle. So that was a good one and a different way. And you get to different people, like people that was just passing around and taking a beer. Well, you can buy your Palestinian beer. So you start to, we're trying to get to all these different networks.
Yeah, and like there we're part of this artist against genocide campaign, trying to keep the artist community active, that they position themselves against genocide, and that sometimes they have a much more access to people, and they could talk in concerts or on their forums about this. We've been trying to reach people that do poetry too, like doing poetry readings, and some we've done raffles with local artists. We ask for local artists to donate their
pieces of art
and try to get people involved, and through anything we can think about, like art, music, movies, some actions in the street, to see, to grasp the humanity of like the Palestinian people, and just like us, and they have different like all these complex ways of expressing themselves. So we could access them too through poetry that is so powerful,
through
music, movies.
Well, thank you for all of the time and energy that you've put into your work for Palestine. I just want to thank you. Gracias for that work. We know it's not easy, and under the circumstances that you're under as well, just the ongoing violence around your guys' communities, the displacements, this asesinado of el padre, you guys are dealing with some heavy shit on your own end, and then to also be taking on the solidarity struggle it's a lot. So I just want to thank you both for the time and energy that you've already put in, and your whole crew has put in. And maybe we could talk a little bit now about like where do you think this is going? El futuro, pues. Where are we going with all this? How do you guys see the future in Chiapas? How are you seeing these new bridges that you've been building with Palestine and Chiapas? And if there's anything you want to share as we kind of wrap up our conversation, which has been really informational for me and just inspiring in terms of what you guys have been doing.
Yeah,
the future is difficult.
Yeah, it's so.
I'm sorry, but that's the word.
Understatement. The future is difficult.
Yeah, and it's open at the same time. It depends on us to, it's interesting as a group. After a year of genocide and looking at things going worse and worse and worse, we didn't think we were going to be here like a year ago. We thought maybe, how long is this going to last? 1 month, 2 months, 6 months? And after a year, we try to do things every week or as much as we can. And it's both very exhaustive and it's very tiring. And at the same time, it makes you feel you're doing something, at least something. And it's better than just doing nothing. That the group has got to be some sort of like a space where we can share our feelings, our
How are we doing?
our fears, because a lot of times we're very desperate and we feel a lot of anger and sadness and this mix of feelings that every week things are getting worse. But it's a space that we can talk about it. We can feel okay, then let's do something about it. It's not just stay at home or look the other side. So that's got to be an important space for us to.
And I think our battery, like to look at the struggle of the Palestinian people, give us strong to keep going. Like we're not living nothing what is they're living. So it gives you the strength and the power to keep going. How the Palestinian people have been doing this for many, many years, generation after generation, give us the power to keep doing things.
Yeah, and like as we get a lot of inspiration from the Palestinians, as someone said about the desperation. Like, have I gained the right to desperate? No, because we haven't tried. Maybe I can say I'm desperate because I've tried all the possibilities of struggle, and being this infinite, we can always look for something to be done. So that give us
strength.
Yeah, the strength to keep going. We can always try something else. We can always
have new ideas.
Yes.
Do something new, or not new, but keep moving and doing something about it.
This is so important, to keep moving, keep walking. Because if we stop, we just sink in desperation and disillusion and sadness. But if we keep doing things, even when they could be very small or insignificant sometimes, there's always someone out there that will maybe get the message.
Like the seed. It's like a little seed that maybe in many years will be a fruit of it. But we need to keep moving and working the land.
You know, we didn't talk too much about El Zapatismo and the Zapatista movement, but I just want to mention that I think when I was a teenager and kind of studying more about Latin America, I grew up in Chicago. I don't know, I was studying the Zapatistas and really it was, at that time, it was the Iraq War, like 2003, and I was learning more just about, worldwide, opening my eyes to the histories of the world, the struggles of the world. I grew up in Jewish Zionist community in Chicago, so I was indoctrinated into Zionism, and I was very much part of, a whole generation of young Jewish people who were like birthright generation. I didn't go on birthright, but that's my history, is like I have deep, my family is Zionists. My family are Zionists. And so it was really encountering the Zapatistas and other movements in Latin America, liberation struggles, that helped me understand Palestine a lot more. And so I know we didn't really go deeply into, everything about Zapatista movement, but I think for a lot of people, and I encountered a professor here in Japan who also said that in the 90s, during the Zapatista movement times, he also was very inspired by that at Kyoto Daigaku, at the Kyoto University here in Japan. And so, as much as we're also talking about Palestine and the Palestinian struggle as a root of a lot of people's, or like you mentioned, Kui, earlier, like a compass. We use Palestine, and Palestine can be used as a compass to understand liberation struggles worldwide. And the Zapatistas equally have such a strong image and strong rooted struggle that I think just last year they celebrated 30 years of autonomy. Yeah. And so we don't have to talk that much about it, but if you want to comment anything about that, I want to leave space for just how those two liberation movements and really self-determination, indigenous self-determination movements are inspiring just a worldwide awakening. If you have any comments on that, we can talk about that for a second. Like, I just wanted to share that for my personal story as someone who was coming out, like unlearning Zionism and unlearning a lot of the shit that I was taught about Israel growing up. And all of us have been taught in the mass media or through just the propaganda in general. It was like encountering Zapatista ideology that helped me be like, oh shit, like actually what's happening over there is something different than what I understand. So yeah, I just want to leave it open for a comment if you guys have anything on that.
Well, there's a lot of similarities between like what the indigenous people lived here before 94 and the centuries before. This exploitation, this racism, classism, semi-slavery, all this terrible situation, and the need to organize, and all this colonial historical oppression, and the way that people were oppressed, killed, and kicked out from their lands, and just as seen as subhuman, like us, the Palestinian people have been treated as they don't have any feelings, rights. They don't have rights, they don't have they're subhuman.
They're not human.
And therefore the colonial power has the right to do whatever they want. Like here in the city in San Cristobal, just before in the 80s, that indigenous people didn't have the right to walk the sidewalk. People were like sold, or there was semi-slavery, and the people that felt powerful had the right to humiliate and just with violence, or like physical or with psychological, or with their words, the same way that the Palestinians are being treated by the Israelis. They just consider them subhuman, and this is this colonial mentality that allows them to do all these terrible things on someone else. And behind that, there's always some economical interest on the land and the resources.
And the cheap handwork.
Yeah, you can just exploit them and abuse them. So there's all these similarities, and how people have this need to look for ways that are not common, or they need to look for ways to fight against this, resist. And the Palestinians have been resisting for centuries. It's hard to say, like maybe in our experience it's so short, but maybe the 90s, Chiapas was an inspiration spot for all the struggles coming from the fall of the Soviet Union, and all the liberation struggles from Central America, like locally, and that was that needed a transition, and luckily there was this uprising that inspired a lot of people and gave and showed that it's possible. There's always another way, and we shouldn't just feel defeated, but look for another way of struggle. And it's been 30 years later. Now we can see the Palestinians fighting for the land, fighting for survival, fighting for this dignity under what they do. So maybe it's the moment for the world to look for the Palestinian struggle, in which is very clear that it's indigenous people resisting a colonial system. Could be an experiment of what they could be planning for all the rest of us. To the Palestinians, they exterminate them. What will they do to the rest of us? So it's the moment to support them and learn from their struggle for the future generations.
Gracias. Gracias. Thank you so much for sharing your guys' work and everything you've been up to, and for wrapping it up and really, I mean, tejiendo, to be weaving the struggles, to be weaving the resistance. It's so important that we understand how deeply connected these two places and many other places are. And yeah, just really appreciate everyone, you all taking time, and all, like I said before, all the work that you've already done. So looking forward to being in touch with you guys and seeing what else we can scheme together as this continues, unfortunately. But yeah, sending lots of, pues, mandando mi solidaridad y unos abrazos, sending my solidarity and hugs to all of you guys in Chiapas. And yeah, until next time, free Palestine. Viva, viva Palestina.
Viva Palestina libre.
Viva Palestina libre.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Donde la vida ha dejado de ser sagrada. Y entonces, cuánta necesidad tienen los palestinos y palestinas esa palabra tan hermosa que es en hebreo shalom, paz para Palestina. Creo que podemos decir shalom para Chiapas, shalom para San Cristóbal, shalom para México, shalom para Palestina, shalom para toda la humanidad